everyone. This is Real Talk on Racism, and I'm your host, Lisa Hurley. Today, folks, get ready. Woo! We have with us Lola Bakare, who is an Anthem award-winning inclusive marketing strategist, a LinkedIn top voice in marketing and advertising, and the founder of Biko, a boutique marketing consultancy. Lola.
Lisa!
Welcome.
Meeting my online heroes in real life.
Isn't this
It's amazing.
wonderful? It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And let me just be honest, right? So I had a whole nother interview planned. I had a whole nother set of questions.
Really?
And then you went with your Black woman excellence and wrote a magnum opus.
Oh, wow.
A magnum opus.
You're too kind.
Of an article for Harvard Business Review. It is titled, How Black Women Can Navigate Pay Gap Gaslighting. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I guess this is what we're going to be talking about.
I'm here for it.
Because you laid it all out. So my first question is, how did that even come to pass? You writing this article.
So I think it's important that we tell people the real story of how these things get done.
Yes.
So I am going to tell you the real story.
Give us
there's
the backstory.
How I came up with the article, but then there's also how did I get past that gate. And the reality is I work with an amazing publicist who is, a considerable expense for the size of my business, but one that I decided was worth it because I wanted to be able to share my voice in places where I could have the most impact.
Yes.
And bring in people, as you saw with the piece, to benefit from that as well. So Mita Malik, who I think a lot of us know, introduced me to her publicist.
Yes.
Yep.
Who is wonderful.
She's amazing.
Yes.
Both Mita and Sarah are amazing. And Publifier Relations hooked up the opportunity. From there, it was on me to kind of come up with what's the concept that is really going to make use of this moment that is Black women's equal pay day in a way that is lasting.
So here's my another question. Your pitch was specifically for that day, or was it for that particular? Okay.
That particular pitch, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it's not going to be the last.
Well, listen. After the way you knocked it all the way out of the park, never to be retrieved.
Thank you.
It is definitely not going to be the last.
Well, and the other part of it is, I think some of the questions I've been getting about, even the process of writing, how did you, how do you? It wasn't easy, and there's a lot of personal stories in there. There's a lot of stuff that might make you feel vulnerable to, the next time I go to create some sort of a contract or a deal or whatever, and I'm looking for a job or whatever it is I may do in the future, are people going to think, oh, wow, she makes a lot of noise? All that stuff is going through your head, but then I just had to sit down and say to myself, what do you want to say about this? Literally, just
get clear.
Do that. Get clear on what you want to say about it. The outline manifested from there, and then doing the research and talking to all the amazing women who shared their voices for the piece. That's what really crystallized what it became, and it was a labor of love, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it just, everybody, I mean, as you can tell, I highly recommend anyone who is interested in this kind of work, go get immediately hence to the internet and look up this article and read it.
If you're not interested, read it too, because you probably really do need to read it.
Yeah.
If you have people on your team who the data tells us are likely to be being underpaid, I won't go into who those people are because you know. You need to start engaging in this issue.
Yeah. One of the quotes that struck me most. I mean, it was one of those cases where you want to highlight the entire thing.
Oh my
I'm not even, seriously, it is the truth. It is the absolute truth. But one that struck out was, being gaslit into gratitude is a tough cycle to break. So tell us more. For the viewers who might not even know what gaslighting is, or that whole dynamic.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to start with. Gaslighting is a term that is used to describe the phenomenon of being made to feel like your reality is somehow not what's happening. Being made to actually question your own reality. Like, I might actually not know what's going on. Like that's where it came. It came from a movie. I forget what exact year. A friend of mine made me watch it last week after the article because I hadn't, and then I really got it. Like,
yeah. It's like
in
your
a relationship.
Right. You're there sitting in, let's say, a cream-colored blazer, right?
Yeah.
And you know it's a cream-colored blazer, and I say, wow, I really love your dark brown blazer.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's not dark brown, it's cream. And I'm like, no, it's dark brown.
Yeah. And then
you start saying, oh, is it dark brown?
No, but then what you say to make me question, you say something like, see, the thing is, you've always had trouble with colors.
Yes.
You know, and I'm just trying to help you because I know you don't really get the whole color thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then you think back to one time that maybe you mistook a color, and that's how it goes.
And that's how it goes.
When it comes to the pay gap issue, yes, it's not necessarily the same gaslighting that happened in the movie, but we've popularized this term to describe this phenomenon in many different ways. And when it comes to getting what you're worth, there is a lot of vulnerability in going to say, okay, I think what I'm getting paid is wrong, or I want more, especially when you come from a culture and a scenario and a society and a history dating back to all of the things, colonialism and slavery in the United States and the Caribbean. We aren't necessarily socialized to believe that we should ask for more because what we're getting is more than what our ancestors got.
Yeah. And people want us to just be grateful with crumbs.
And honestly, that's what they wanted from our ancestors too. Even somebody who was a first generation Nigerian, like, I'm proud to be an American and represent the challenges that have happened because of what it means to be black in this country. So that's the context. And, it's easy to shut someone down. And everybody can probably think to a lot of personal experiences, even in families and relationships where this happens too. So you really have to figure out how to not be got by those moments where you're being asked to sort of reconsider your worth.
Ooh.
You know?
Ooh.
Like, why would you ever reconsider your worth?
Because your worth, first of all, we're all innately worthy. We're all
Absolutely.
worthy. We're worthy of the best. And we're worthy of the best treatment,
Yes.
the best work situation,
Yes.
the best pay.
And we're certainly worthy of fairness.
We're worthy of fairness and equity.
Yes. So part of this, I won't say where it was, but when I worked at a startup as a department head, I mean, anybody can look it up.
Yeah.
But like,
so immediately head to her LinkedIn and check.
It's great. That was my first time really being at the level of seeing how the salaries get set. Like seeing that what you do is you sit down and you look at a spreadsheet and there is a range of budget for a role. And sometimes it's a wide one, but there is an upper limit of that range, and that money is there. That money is there for that role. That is the top tier of what an organization has decided that person in the role, if they're successful, is worth. So let's start with that. When did we get to a place where we've taken that reality, but instead when we're bringing people in, our mindset is, okay, how cheap can we get them for?
Yeah. Yeah.
We want them to do as much as they can to help our business, but we also want to get them for as cheap as possible. Like that's,
if that isn't rooted in sort of the whole post-enslavement, post-colonial context, I don't know what is, because that is how it all came about.
Yeah.
Now, something else you mentioned in the article is, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, the LIDE number.
Yes.
LIED,
yes.
I know, but it's the LIDE number. I am sure that is not an accident. So,
oh, no, it wasn't.
Right.
It took a while searching for the right acronym, too, but then we finally got there.
Like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So please explain what the LIDE number is and how it's calculated. Yeah, tell us more about it.
So I did a lot of research looking at the AAUW data, and I hope I didn't get that acronym wrong, but we can follow up with the link.
AAWU? I don't know. I don't remember. One of those.
It's an organization that's doing a lot of work on studying the pay gap, breaking it down with the data. And, instead of just reporting that we are making 58 cents on the dollar, as black women average, that's true. I wanted to think through how we can make that number more actionable and real to us as individuals. Understanding, and this is the key, because a lot of Twitter fingers, love to like call you on the, but what if? Obviously,
the whatabouters.
Right. The number is demonstrative. It's meant to give you a number that's based on what you've earned, should that 58 in the dollar average have been true for an individual. And there's so many interdependencies that obviously we all know that's not going to be the case. Like, my pay gap isn't going to be exactly 58 cents of all, if I did that math, which the LIDE formula helps you do, it's not going to come out clean, but it is going to give me something to understand there's a heft to the reason why I need to take the risk and do this. Most importantly, for the women coming up behind you. Right? So it's not like you're going to go in and say, well, I did the math and I have this formula and this is how much I have lost out on my career. It's not that. We could probably create some sort of algorithm. That would be an entire probably year of a scientist.
That's a whole nother, yes, exactly.
Working, right? So it's not that, but it gives people a sense of their lifetime earnings deficit. And that's the reason why this issue matters so much. Every year we work, that compounds, right? And so we want to make sure, especially women who are getting their first jobs, think about all this and make sure that package is at the high end of the range that it could possibly be, because it all starts from there. So that's the idea. And I had a woman, this really touched me. This was probably the moment that made me so glad that I did this. A woman I didn't know commented on one of the LinkedIn posts going around and said, wow, reading this made me understand that I actually have a point and that I'm not asking for too much like everyone at my work has been trying to convince me. And I'm going to keep going for it.
And that's the gaslighting that you've spoken about before, where they literally will, there is data that says there's a pay gap, the 58 cents that you're referring to, right? And companies will still try and gaslight employees into saying, but no, it doesn't really exist. And no, there's no budget. And
right, if you don't want to believe it, fine. But all we're saying functionally is that you have your range. And if I'm doing well, then I want to be at the highest end of it. You don't have to believe in the reality of the facts at all. But what you need to do
is get that money.
Do the right thing. Right, get that money and give that money, because you have it, and there's no reason why someone with a great performance rating shouldn't be at the higher end of the range,
Agreed.
So that's that.
Well, that brings me to another question, which is, what can allies do? What is the role of allies when it comes to the whole? Please take a sip of water, because this is gonna, right? Or shall we call it tea? Shall we call it tea? What is the role of allies? Iced tea. We're serving it chilly and cold. Yeah. What should allies do when it comes to pay equity? I always say ally is a verb. So being an ally involves some kind of action. What do they need to do?
And I love that, because the way I think about it is someone committed to the practice of allyship. I actually have a workshop I created around this. And so if you are practicing allyship, it starts with your sphere of influence. What can you as an individual do to solve this problem for the people in your closest proximity, the systems in your closest proximity? And for most people, if we think about who we're talking to on a LinkedIn, for example, these are people who have teams reporting to them. Awesome. Start inquiring about what the gaps are on your team. Like, stop letting the sort of corporate side of solving these problems, which is important, and the systems need to be changed. That's great. The top-down solutions hopefully will come. But even you, as a manager, if 2 people report to you, you have the power to go say, okay, I know this was the percentage increase we were looking to do this year, but here's all the data on the pay gap for women, Black women, whatever, Asian women. And actually, it's worse for Hispanic women and Native American women than even Black women. So you can look up that data. But so how can you solve that problem for your employee and be the one who's willing to take the risk to bring it up? And that's hard, because we all have responsibilities. Nobody wants to put their career at risk. But when you do get some level of power to be able to advocate for someone else, I believe it's a risk that you have to take, really, if you want to sleep at night, And I think that companies are starting more and more to value the importance of this discourse, because there's a risk to not having the discourse. Nobody wants to be called out.
Nobody wants to be called out.
And we have the power to do that.
We do. And speaking of calling people out, now, You recently attended the Cannes Festival of Creativity.
I did.
Right? Sounded amazing. And so, of course, you know, I am always kind of like entranced by your content and everything that you do, everything that you write. It's true. And so, but I noticed that one of the things you posted was that there was a talk about equity featuring an all-white panel.
I mean, this happens, and I'm not going to get into details. You know, the important thing, one thing I want to mention is I had a great experience at Cannes.
Yes.
You know, and I think that more so than most conferences and festivals, that team is committed to figuring out how to balance these skills and level the playing field and create solutions. And they would tell you the same. They are disappointed when they observe programming that doesn't represent the full sphere of diversity that it should, especially on an issue like equity. So for me, if we're talking about equity for women, you can't have a cast of all white women. Like, it's just, and I get that, you know, people ask questions like, well, where do we draw the line? Does it always have to be a percentage representative of the population? But it's like what they say about watching certain things people watch. You know it when you see it when it's right. So let's not like get this issue confused by all the obfuscations.
Thank you. Obfuscations. Yes.
Thank you. That happen when we start questioning these like details of, well, how should we fix it? What you need to do is fix it when it looks off. And I don't know how that doesn't look off. And I'm always happy to call out when it looks off. It looks off. That's it. And so, I think the thing that one of my friends, who I think you know, Walt Gear, does, right? So I love this about Walt. If he's going to a conference and you don't have whatever the percentage is, I think it's 15% of black speakers represented, he will not lend his voice to that conference.
I love that.
I'm pretty sure I was invited to speak at a conference last year because of that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't know, but I got the call after he said that. So, like, these are the things that we can all do, and there's no reason why allies can't do what Walt is doing. There's no reason why.
The thing is I feel like so Walt is black, phenotypically black person, and I do see a lot of support among the black community, the black LinkedIn community in particular. I don't see it as often across racial phenotypes, shall we say?
And we're working towards that. It's unfortunate. There are a few standouts, you know, but
I can think of a few.
But what we want to do is normalize this behavior by creating accountability for not adopting the behavior. So there's always going to be the gems of the world, and that's not what I'm asking anyone to be. I just want there to be new rules and standards of how we behave and conduct ourselves. New sort of cultural code to what it looks like to have a conference that is really adding value. And if you don't, then don't bring up the topic. Go talk about something else. You know what I mean?
Let us know how you really feel.
And that's one side of the issue. The other side of it is, of course, and a lot of people talk about this, we also can't have a situation where you only care about representation on your stage when it's a topic about equity.
Yes.
I have a lot of other expertise as a trained CPG marketer and someone who's been working, in marketing for almost 20 years now. And there's no reason why when I get calls, it should always be to talk about inclusive marketing. I love talking about it. I'm writing a book about it, but I can also talk about a lot of other things.
You're writing a book about it?
Well, I am.
Do tell.
Oh I didn't mean to slide that in there.
No, that's fine. I mean,
it's funny.
I wanted to get there. Yeah. So here we are.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this is the golden age of opportunity for everyone. That's the one thing I want folks to know. If you have an idea that you want to put in some sort of medium that felt inaccessible to you, now is the time to do it. So because I was on the LinkedIn top 15 voices in marketing and advertising list, a publisher from, an editor, an acquisitions editor from Kogan Page saw it and reached out and basically pitched the idea of doing a proposal.
Okay, don't you just love that? Where you get to the point where they're pitching you? Isn't that wonderful?
It's pretty awesome.
Like you put in the work. You put in the work.
It's still going to be work.
It's still going to be right. I mean, the work to get to the point.
Right.
where the opportunities are flowing toward you,
Yes.
as opposed to you having to do that hard scrabble through
Yeah.
the grit.
And you never know when it's going to happen. That's another important point for everyone. Like, I started independent consulting 7 years ago. I branded my business and started creating sort of tangible thought leadership swim lanes and sort of content around inclusive marketing and advocacy for women and helping women be heard and all these sorts of things, advocating for women in marketing. But it wasn't until the 6th year that these things started to happen. And I'm not saying everybody should wait that long. There are a lot of reasons why it took that long for me. But yes, it feels good when things start to crystallize. And as Black women especially, we need to be able to not stand in our own way when that happens, because that's also one of the challenges, to really believe that you're worthy of it. So writing the proposal was tough, because it's like, it is that like, oh my God, am I really doing this? Am I really doing it? Are they going to say no? And like, you're thinking about that instead of writing the proposal. You know what I mean?
Imposter syndrome has you in a chokehold,
right. Or self-doubt.
Or self-doubt.
That's the way there's that piece in also HBR that Ruchika Tulshnayan and Jodianne Peterson wrote about how we need to stop telling women they have imposter syndrome.
Very true.
Right? Because it's like, we don't need to call it this crazy thing that like is like, you know, you might need some sort of treatment. It's more like, oh, I'm doubting myself, and that's a very common human thing. So through that self-doubt, but the nature of your question, so the book is happening. The proposal was accepted. It'll be published in July 2023, and
Amazing.
The concept is responsible marketing, how to create an authentic and inclusive marketing strategy.
I love that.
I'm really excited about it.
So brands doing well and doing good.
That's it.
Love it.
And marketing leaders, even at the level of like, the vision I'm most excited about is somebody who has, I don't know, a chain of grocery stores in like Ohio, who has a marketing budget, who's never thought about whether they could engage at that level, and they see the Pepsis and the cities doing it, figures out a way to create an inclusive marketing strategy that actually drives their business more than what they were doing before, because it will.
Right.
If they do it right.
Right.
And the book will explain
the book
how.
will help them do that.
Yes.
So stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Lisa. You're so sweet.
So switching gears slightly, a topic that has been swirling around on LinkedIn lately is whether or not justice should be part of DEI work. Should it be JEDI or DEI, J, whatever. So I want to know what your opinion, if you have one.
Honestly, I hadn't heard that, but of course I have an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a lot. I mean, you know,
Tell me a little bit more, like especially for people who haven't heard.
Basically, how do I put this? Basically, the thinking is that justice is too big of a topic to be included in DEI.
Oh. Okay.
Does that give you enough?
Yeah.
All right, there you go. And go.
Thank you. Okay, so my interpretation of it, just hearing
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it, and here's why. It's the potential forcing function for the accountability we so need. Because you can try to create diversity in an organization, you can try to further equity, you can try to support inclusion, but if you're not creating checks and balances that sort of formalize consequences for behaviors among managers and whomever, employees that don't adhere to those goals, then there needs to be justice.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of forcing people to think about how do we do things right in a way that isn't about intent. That's to me one of the biggest challenges. Now I'm an inclusive marketing strategist. Like I talk about these issues through the marketing lens. There are plenty more better, well-heeled people than me to come in and talk to you about your overarching corporate DEI strategy. But from reading and listening to those people, what I've come to understand is that there's a lot of talk about, well, people didn't mean it. And then that idea of, well, if their intention was good, then there don't need to be consequences, really needs to be disrupted.
Yeah.
I could have not intended to do any harm when I ran a red light and struck someone down, but I'm still gonna go to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just say
There's going to be consequences and repercussions.
And I don't know, maybe a lawyer would say, well, no, we can get you off. So maybe that was a bad example. But like at the end of the day, we know we need consequences for actions if change is going to happen. Because like we said at the beginning of this conversation, not everybody is going to be a Mother Teresa, and we shouldn't have that expectation that people are going to do things out of some sort of altruistic desire to be good. I don't even expect that for myself, quite frankly. I just know that being good produces better results for me and everybody else around me. And when everybody else around me has better results, everything is better for me. So you can have a very...
It's symbiotic.
Yes. You don't have to be an altruist to believe in this stuff.
Yeah. I
I
love
hope that didn't sound bad, but it's true.
No, not at all. So we're unfortunately almost coming to the end. Almost coming to the end. And we are here shooting in Princeton. And
I love it.
We're here shooting in Princeton, and a birdie told me, a little birdie whispered to me, that Princeton has a very special meaning to you. It's very resonant for you. So please share that.
So from the age of 14 to I guess 18, whenever you graduate from high school, I went to school down the road. I was a boarder at the Lawrenceville School, one of the Northeast's most lauded preparatory institutions, and I had an amazing experience. I also had a very challenging experience being a black woman of few, being a woman of size of few, and being in this environment where the norm was, blonde hair, blue eyes, athletic sort of thing. And so I experienced a lot growing up that maybe I wasn't even aware of it then, may have had some impact on my interpretation of my self-worth. And so being here is interesting. It's it's at once there are a lot of mixed emotions, but it does feel somewhat triumphant that there's a lot I've worked through since being that 18-year-old who, didn't really have someone to take to prom. You know what I mean? So like, I think it's profound, and I want anybody watching this who might feel that sense of, I'm not like them, you need to know that that's actually going to be your superpower down the line. And I mean, I had parents who were willing to invest in giving me the best of everything education-wise, and that has paid off so much. So, and I love my parents. So the challenges of that experience were not outweighed by the good that came out of it and the amazing friends I made there. It does make being here weighty, for sure.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, for choosing to come, even though you knew it might be an emotionally resonant
But I was interested
experience.
in it. I lean in.
Yeah,
when you said it was in Princeton, I was like, oh.
You're like, oh, I'm going to be there.
Yes. So thank you, Lisa, for having me.
You are absolutely welcome. And everybody, we are going to put Lola's information up for you to follow her on LinkedIn and everywhere else, and absolutely read her article. And with that, thank you so much for tuning into Real Talk on Racism. I am Lisa Hurley, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everybody. Until next time.